Hi everyone, Nicholas Buffett here from Sunny Cyprus, and today's tutorial is all about getting our functions to update when we filter the data. It's just so annoying when we create our functions, everything's working beautifully, and then we try to filter the data. We want to see the modified functions based on only what we can see, and it doesn't work. Well, that's what I'm going to teach you today. So let's jump straight into this where I'm going to demonstrate the actual issue, and I'm going to show you what we are going to learn as well. So here I've got a workbook, and you can see I've got 4 worksheets at the bottom. So I've got this one here where this is what I use basically when I'm starting to prepare creating the timetable for the next academic year. I've got my faculty full names here, or the staff names here, their initials, and then I've got a faculty or department code so I can see how many people in each department or each faculty and the main subject that they teach. So I've got down at the bottom here, I've got a very basic count function. There it is. Okay, so it's just a count function, and it's counting all the cells in this range D2 to D86, which is all of this blue area here, and it's saying how many of these cells contain a number, and that will tell me how many staff members I've got, and that's 85. And that's perfect because I can see here I'm on row 86, and the first row is the field names. However, when I try to filter to see how many teachers I have, let's say in department number 3, so if I click on 3 there, I'm going to click on OK. You can see it still gives me 85. So you can see that's not updating. And if I get rid of that filter, I put everything back, and I want to see how many teachers, let's say, teach chemistry. And I click on chemistry here. Again, I've only got 4, but it still says 85 because it's not ignoring all of those rows which are hidden. Okay, so let's just go back on that, and let's have a look at this mark sheet as well. So this is a student mark sheet where I record all student results. I've got student names, whether the assessment was actually assessed, the explanation, and whether it was a quiz. So you can see here quizzes, they don't have any grades, they have zeros. I don't actually grade the quizzes, they're just there to keep, students to test their information at the end of a lesson, like an exit ticket. So I don't want these quizzes included in my results at the top. And you can see here it says an average of 40.02. Now it's very low because it's considering all of these here. So if I click on this function here, you can see I'm doing the average of all of this column here. And that really doesn't help, because when I use these this slicer here, and I want to see only the ones which are assessed, you see, so now it's only showing me assessed work. That value hasn't changed. Again, I'm going to show you how to do slices as well, very, very easily. And again, the highest and lowest is values changing. And if I want to see only assessed work for a particular student, let's say Abraham, so I can see his overall performance on all this assessed work that they've done, again, this is not changing. So what am I going to teach you today? Well, I'm going to show you how to do this. So here I'm just going to get rid of these filters because I'm going to show you how to do this. This is what we're going to learn today. So I've got here exactly the same sheet. We can see it's got 85 staff members, but this time when I filter this to see how many staff members are actually in department number 4, look at that, automatically updates 3. And if I get rid of that filter, for example, and I want to see how many people, let's get rid of the filter first, click OK, and I want to see how many people in the chemistry department, let's say again, chemistry, there we go, look at that, 4 people, and it gives me the number 4. And the same for this mark sheet. Remember, I wanted, so let me just get rid of all these filters. So we've got the same values again because it's considering all of these values in this column G. Okay, all the percentage values. But this time, if I click on my slice and say only show the rows with assessed work, there we go. Look at that. It's changed to 60.66. And it only shows me ones which are assessed. Okay, so it's filtered it out. And if I teach on, let's say, Abraham this time, look at that. So this is only the assessed work for Abraham, and it's showing me his data analysis. So he's got an average of 89.61, highest grade was 100, and the lowest was 69.39. What a fantastic way. So this is like a report card. This is great for showing to parents when you've got parent-teacher consultations. So let's get started, and I'm going to show you how you can do this very, very easily using the function aggregate. Okay, first of all, let's have a look at the aggregate function and see what parameters are required for it. Well, first of all, the aggregate function starts with the function name, which is aggregate. The next thing is we need the number which represents which function we're going to be including in this aggregate function. So that's the first parameter, this one here. And that basically is a number which we can see here from the function number. So it's going to be one of these numbers. So if I was to put, let's say, the number 2, then it's going to do the function count. Now, the functions we're going to have a look at today is going to be count. We're going to have a look at large, and we're going to have a look at small. And the reason why we've also got average as well. Now, the reason why I'm going to be using large and small is so that we can see how we can utilize this k parameter at the end here. So the next thing that we want is the options. So after we decide what function we're going to be implementing, we want to add some options. Now, the options essentially state what you want to ignore. So if you were to, let's say, and the one I'm going to be using mostly today is this one here, number 5. So if I was to put number 5, it basically says ignore hidden rows. Now, the hidden rows are the rows which are filtered out when we apply a filter. But if you want to ignore nothing, then you'd use the number 4, but that's really defeating our purpose. If you've got anything else that you want to ignore or avoid ignoring, then you would have a look at these functions here. For example, ignore hidden rows and error values. So let's say some functions are giving some error values and you want those ignored, then that will be one way to apply your filter, and it will give you results based on only values which are valid. No, it would ignore the hidden rows and anything else which is coming up as an error. But I'm going to be using this one here, number 5. The next one is the array. The array is essentially the array or the selection of cells that we're going to be looking at to implement the function average. For example, in this one here, I may be looking at this column here to do the count. On this one here, I may be looking at the range of the percentages so that I can do an average or maximum minimum of those percentages. Now, this last parameter k, this only is required if we use one of these functions here. It's the ones that are in dark blue with the white writing. These ones require another parameter. So if you're using any of these, then you don't need that k parameter. If you're going to use something large or small, then you will need that extra parameter. And I'm going to demonstrate that today. So let's get started with modifying our spreadsheet. I'm going to use this one here, and I can see down here that I've simply got a basic count function, and we've seen that will not update when we apply a filter. So let's use aggregate. I'm going to delete that function. I'm going to start with equals to, type aggregate, open brackets, and we see the first thing is we want to write or enter the number for the function we want to use. I want to use the count function, so I can either enter the number 2 or I'm going to click on number 2, double click there, comma. The next parameter is, well, what are the options? Well, I want to ignore anything which is hidden, any rows which are hidden. So basically when I apply a filter, so I'm going to click on that one there, double click there, that's going to put the number 5, comma, and then the last one is basically the array. So I want to do a count on this array selection here. There we go. Close the bracket, and that's it. Press enter. So let's test this. So I'm going to remove all my filters first, just so I can show you how to apply a filter. So to get these filters at the top, I'm going to click the very first cell which contains my titles of my columns, scroll all the way to the bottom, hold the shift button and click on that bottom right corner. And that basically does the selection without having to click and drag. I'm going to go to my data ribbon and click on filter. And that's going to give me these little filter tabs on the first row where I've got my headings. So if I want to now filter based on the department or faculty, I'm going to click here, remove all of these ticks and only choose number 3, for example. Click OK. There we go. Look at that. It's updated. 14. So I can also do this now if I modify this, and I'm going to do a separate filter. I'm going to say remove all of those, only chemistry, and there we go, 4 people. And if I want to remove my filter, I can very easily. So just click on here and I can click on this to select all, click OK, click on this to select all. There you go. So there's the aggregate function using count. Now, really easy, nothing difficult. Let's move on to the next worksheet. Okay. So this one here, I've removed the table and all the slices and everything so I can demonstrate to you how we can add those in very, very easily. So the first thing I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to go again, click on that top left corner of my table. So that's going to be where it says full name in A6. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. I'm going to hold the shift button down and click on the bottom right corner. There we go. Now I can go to insert in my ribbon, my insert ribbon at the top, and I've got this option here that says table. It confirms, are you sure you want to create a table, and make sure that my table has headers. Look, I've selected that first row with the headers and click on OK. And this has converted my range of cells into a table. You don't have to do this, but I like slices, so you can only implement slices if you've got a table. And there are some other advantages with tables as well. I'm not going to get into those. So if I click anywhere in my table now, and I go up here where I can now see my table design ribbon, because I've actually got the table and I'm inside the table, I can now insert slicer. And from here, I'm just going to choose slicer with the full name and the type. So that's going to allow me to be able to filter on these very, very easily and quickly. There it is there. I'm going to modify this slicer to have it 2 columns because I don't want the names going too far down. So I'm going to click on this, make sure I've got the slicer selected at the top. I'm going to choose 2 columns, and I'm just going to make the width just a bit smaller. Actually, make that a bit bigger so we can see the full name. And I can go down. There you go. And I can see all the names now. And look at this. Very easily, I can now click on assessed. And look at that, it filters on assessed. If I click on the name, it filters on assessed and name, and I can get rid of the filters. But this hasn't solved my issue here. So let's do that. So the first thing I want to do is to modify the average. I don't want to use average, I want to use aggregate. So let's get rid of that. Open brackets. So I want average, so that's number 1. I'm going to double click on number 1, comma. And the next thing is what I want to ignore. Well, I just want to ignore anything which is essentially hidden. So ignore hidden rows. They're not going to be included in that function. Double click there for 5, comma, and then it wants my array. So my array is going to be, I want the average of the percentage. So I'm just going to scroll and select all of this. Go to the top and close the brackets. And now when I press enter, let's have a look. So if I filter now based on assessed, look at that, that one's changing. Everything else is not. Okay, and if I click on Abraham, look at that, I can just see his average. All right, so what we want to do, let's get rid of these filters. I now want to do the same with highest and lowest. Now, highest and lowest, you would think that you would use maximum and minimum. And that's great. You can do that very easily with aggregate. So if I get rid of that, equals to aggregate, open the brackets, I can use number 4 for max and number 5 for min, and then select number 5 to ignore everything that's hidden, and then choose my range of cells. But I'm going to teach you how you can use large and small and see what the difference is. Okay, so basically, if I filter this out first, so if I'm going to go to assess and go to Abraham, if I filter on, if I do maximum on this selection here, then the maximum is going to be 100 because that's the largest number. And if I do minimum, it's going to be 69 because that's the smallest number in this range. However, if I want the third of, in this case, the first largest number is 100, the second largest number is 100, the third largest number is 100, and the fourth largest number is 100, but the fifth largest number is 98. The sixth is, what would it be? 96. So if you want to find the largest number based in the series, let's say the first or the fifth or whatever, then you would use large, and the same with small. So if you want, let's say, the smallest one, then you will put the smallest one. If you want the second smallest one, then you would choose the second smallest one. And that's what I'm going to do. Just so you can see how we can use that extra parameter that we said here, the K parameter. Okay, so this K parameter here. So let's go back. So I'm going to get rid of highest. And again, I'm going to type equals to aggregate, open brackets, aggregate, open brackets. And instead of using max and min, I'm going to go down and I'm looking for large. So that's number 14. So double click on that, comma. And if I now put ignore hidden rows, in fact, let me just get rid of the filters first. So I'm going to click on these slices, get rid of those filters and do this again. So equals to aggregate, open bracket. So I want number 14, comma, ignore hidden rows, comma, and now it wants my array. So my array is going to be on the percentage. So I'm going to scroll down all the way down to here, selecting all of this. And now what it wants is comma. So now it's asking for this next parameter, the K parameter. And because I've got a K parameter with this particular function, I want the first largest number. So we're going to see the difference. Okay. So if I close that and press enter there, it's 100. Now, if I filter this on Abraham and assess, we can see it's 100. But now, if and I'm going to show you this up to the 4. So if I choose the fourth largest number, again, it's 100. But if I choose the fifth largest number, it's 97.5. And that's the fifth largest number, which is 98. It's 97.5 rounded up. So it's up to you how you use that. So I'm just going to take that back to 1. So I want the first largest number. And I'm going to do the same with small. So let me just get rid of the filters. And I'm going to modify this one as well. So I'm going to do equals to open bracket. So I'm going to use small, comma, I want to ignore hidden rows, comma, my array is all of this with the percentages. There we go. Comma, and again, I want the first smallest number. And press enter on that. Now, if I now filter this, I want everything assessed. I want Abraham. You can see it's showing me this student. If I want a different student, let's say Isla Rose over here, I click on her. Look at that. Shows me Isla's highest and lowest, her average. Nasir, you can see his lowest grade was 0, highest grade was 100, so he's got a 0 in there. And isn't that a fantastic way to produce a report card for students or to display information if you've got a parent-teachers consultation? Absolutely fantastic. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to show you how we can use aggregate in reference form. Up until now, we've been using this one here, using in array form. And essentially, we've been using just one selection of cells, one array. And when we do this in array form, we said this extra K parameter here. Now, with reference form, we can actually choose multiple arrays. We can use different selections of cells within our spreadsheet. But we cannot use reference form. So you can see here you've got reference 1, reference 2, and you can go on and on and on. But you can only use this reference form with these functions here, 1 to 13. You cannot use reference form with these functions, 4 to 19, these ones which are in blue with the white writing. So if you're going to use these functions, you could only have one selection of cells that it's going to implement the function on. Now, I've got here a modified version of the previous spreadsheet. So I've put here test 1, 2, and 3. And what I want to do, I want to use the aggregate function and use average to get the average of all the numbers in column for test 1 and all the numbers in the column test 3 together. So that's basically two separate references or two arrays. And that's basically what references is all about. So I'm just going to click here. I'm going to go to equals to aggregate brackets. I'm going to be doing the average function, comma. I'm going to ignore hidden rows. And now I'm going to press comma. And you can see now I choose my array. So I'm going to choose this array here. This is my first array. And you can see if I was to put a comma, I've now got a choice to either put, let's say I was using the function large, where I've got that k parameter, I will put my k parameter there, let's say number 4, to find the fourth largest number if it was large. But if I'm going to put another reference, then I'm just going to select this reference. So this is my second reference, my second array, which is going to be included. So I'm going to be doing an average of all of these numbers in both of these selections. Now I'm going to close those brackets, okay, and press enter, and that's it. So the only difference is we're applying multiple references. So if I press enter now, that's my average of all of those numbers. And again, if I click on assessed, it's only going to show, there we go, the average of the numbers which are assessed. And if I click on Abraham, it's going to show the average based on these numbers and these numbers in test 1 and test 3. So that's basically aggregate with references. Nothing different to aggregate with array. We're just using multiple references, and how you would use that, that's entirely up to you. Okay, I hope you've learned something new. I hope this has solved an issue which you've had in the past. It's definitely solved issues that I've had in the past, and I've had quite a few people ask me how they can do this. So if you've learned something new, you found this interesting, you know the drill. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.